awesome.
Discussing that, but getting into that role is a two-part question. Anytime you look at a statewide race, there's the big five that you have to contend with.
Yeah.
Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Prince George's, Montgomery, and to a degree, Howard County, maybe Hartford County. And Anne Arundel.
Anne Arundel,
which is
right.
the big five. Montgomery County, more independents than Republicans. Baltimore City, Prince George's County. In a general election, which you would need those type of voters in order to do it, have you mapped out, and you said you did polling, on what your strategy will be in terms of trying to tackle places like Baltimore City and Prince George's, which are primarily African-American dominated thing. And the second thing is Baltimore City has been excluded for the first time in decades from the gubernatorial run. No candidate that's running for governor, lieutenant governor or governor, is from the Baltimore region.
Right.
Both of you are from the southern region of Maryland. What would Baltimore voters gain from your administration?
Well, that's a long and good question. So hopefully I remember the whole thing. Yeah, we just had a good meeting yesterday talking about trying to focus in on Prince George's County and Baltimore City voters. It's a challenge for us, obviously, because historically they're very difficult for voters in those two jurisdictions to consider voting for a Republican. But if you look at the whole state, and we've done our polling shows, by the way, an overwhelming majority of Marylanders, black, white, independent, Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. In every jurisdiction, a majority of Marylanders feel that Maryland's way off track and heading in the wrong direction. Only 31% of the people in this state want to continue heading in the same direction. 56% want to see a dramatic change of direction in Annapolis. And so we think we're going to, people are so fed up with politics as usual in Annapolis that they're probably maybe willing to consider looking at alternatives that they haven't done in the past. But you're right, those are battleground states, counties that you talked about. We have a pretty easy time in 17 or 18 counties out of the 24. We're going to win overwhelmingly in Western Maryland, Eastern Shore, Southern Maryland. Anne Arundel County is a big county. We're going to win here. Howard County is a battleground state. Boyd is from Howard County. I'm from Anne Arundel County. We're two core counties in the middle. They're not really Washington suburbs or Baltimore suburbs. They're in between both, right? So,
let me say something. In terms of Prince George's and Baltimore City, I think they are different jurisdictions, very different jurisdictions. But one of the common denominators there is education. And you weren't at I don't think, you were at the announcement when I was announced as Lieutenant Governor. But one of the things I mentioned in particular there is there are a lot of parents that their kids are stuck in underperforming schools. And there's no reason that you have Prince George's, which is probably the most affluent, predominant African-American jurisdiction in the country, possibly the world.
It's the wealthiest and most highly educated black population in the United States.
To have that as one of the least performing jurisdictions, and Baltimore City, that almost every year, those two tend to sit at the bottom. And that's something that I think we can reach out to those parents in Baltimore City, to those parents in Prince George's to say, look, we are willing to get on the ground and find out what the real reason is. And we know it's not just money. It's not just a question of money, because there's a lot of money that's being spent. That money is not getting to the classroom in many cases. And there are other issues that we cannot necessarily change, because there's family issues, but we can provide an environment, because the best social program is a job. And we can provide an environment where there's job creation in Baltimore City that will address some of those issues. We can also set an example and talk about the role of fathers in a household, that even if you are not with the mother of your children, you can be around. When I grew up in D.C., I had some friends that their parents had separated or whatever the case may be, but their father was there. I have a very good friend that I could be over his house playing, hanging around. His father showed up almost every day. They didn't live together, but his father was there for those kids. And they turned out well. So there's some things we can do on that side. The economic development is a piece that applies to everyone, and definitely in Baltimore City. There's an education issue. There's also educating. They're talking in Annapolis about cybersecurity and all this stuff, and that's nice. And that's great, and we need to be at the forefront of that from a state standpoint. But we need to also deal with the skilled manufacturing and providing jobs for those folks who are not going to be the cybersecurity, the computer people, the technology people, because not everybody's going to do that.
We've lost 28% of our manufacturing base over the past 7 years.
And there's new
26,000 manufacturing jobs.
And there's
we lost.
new manufacturing that is coming in. The country, and particularly in the Midwest, is starting to pick up manufacturing jobs again. And largely because our energy prices in this country are lower than a lot of other countries, most countries in the world. Our energy is lower. And so that is something that we can encourage here.
Except in Maryland, under the O'Malley administration, energy costs are up 43%, which is twice the national average.
Right, and that's something that we can address. Instead of doing some of this craziness of putting windmills out in the ocean, in the summer, have you been to Ocean City in the summer? The wind doesn't blow. Right. So, that is something that we don't need to be addressing when energy prices, natural gas prices are the lowest they've been in centuries. Or centuries, I don't know if we had natural gas centuries ago, but in years, that we can encourage more manufacturing in this state and encourage and develop the technology skills that people need to have, the skilled manufacturing skills.
Back to the original question real quick. So you mentioned a lot of counties and a lot of places. The toughest ones for us are Baltimore City, Prince George's, and Montgomery County. We think we're going to win the rest. We've got to do better in those areas. We don't necessarily, it's hard to say we're going to win all those jurisdictions, but we have to at least convince enough voters to take a look at us. I'm a lifelong Prince George's guy, born and raised. Just moved to Annapolis not too long ago, but I spent most of my life there. My dad was a former county executive in Prince George's County. I'm the last top vote getter for the Republican Party, getting 40% in Prince George's against Steny Hoyer. So it's not a strange territory. I mean, we're going to go campaign for every vote in every neighborhood, in the churches, in the communities. We're not afraid to go anywhere. And even if people aren't going to agree with us on everything, we're going to go there and try to win their vote and earn their vote.
My old neighborhood lives in Prince George's County now. The folks I grew up with, most of them, they moved out of D.C., moved to Prince George's County.
I grew up in Landover, inside the Beltway, so I understand the community.